Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to We Want You to Make Peace seminar. My name is Viivi Alilöyty, and I will be your host tonight. We have wonderful guests here tonight. They have amazing experience and knowledge. They really know what they're talking about. So rather than me speaking, I want to give them the time to speak more. But before we start out, let me introduce who we have up here. We have Pekka Haavisto, who is the member of the parliament and former Minister of Environment and Minister for International Development. Then we have Sonja Huttunen right next to him. And Sonja Huttunen is the current UN Youth Delegate of Finland, and she is also working as an assistant to a member of parliament. Right next to me, we have Raimundo Tamayo, who is a former project leader of a violence prevention project for youth and adolescents in Tijuana, Mexico, who are at risk, for example. I'll let Raimundo tell more about himself later on, because he has very impressive curriculum vitae. Then we have Irini Kapu, who is a Greek guide and a project manager of the educational program Refugee Flows, Human Rights and Interculturalism. And then we have Mari Kousa-Kuusisto, who is the president of the Scout District of Southwestern Finland and a director of a reception center for asylum seekers. We were also going to have Elisabeth Rehn here today, but unfortunately she couldn't come. She wanted to send her greetings and warn you about bees, because unfortunately she got stung by a bee today. Okay, so should we begin? Have you ever heard about the United Nations Resolution on Youth, Peace and Security? I'm going to ask you these questions, and you have the papers, like I do here. Red is no, and blue is yes. So, have you ever heard about this resolution before? I would say it's a 50-50 situation here. Did you know that the Scouts and Guides of Finland had a role in preparing the initiative? Thought so. I didn't know either beforehand. But this resolution is a historical decision because it's the first decision of the Security Council that acknowledges youth's role in peacemaking and opposing violent movements. So that's why it's important, and that's why we're talking about it right now. Are you worried for the peace? My next question is, are you from Finland? Yeah, that explains a lot. Okay, have you thought about your own role in fighting for peace? Most of you have. Very good. Do you think the Scouts in Europe have done enough and taken an active role in the refugee crisis? I'm seeing a lot of red at the moment. What about the last question? Do you feel that as a young person you can impact issues on security and crisis? It's a difficult question. Maybe it's easier to answer after the discussion we have here. We'll go back to that. If you have any questions during this discussion, please come right next to the stage and I will hand out a microphone to you so we will also hear your questions. But now we should start, and we have introduction part where every speaker represents themselves and shows some pictures that mean something for them. Pekka, would you start? You can come here.
I don't see my pictures, so I will do it here. Okay, good afternoon, early evening to everyone. And I was asked to tell 4 minutes about myself and my work. And I give you a good hint that whenever youth groups are coming to the Finnish parliament and they said, what should I ask from the parliamentarian? I don't know anything about the politics. Then we always advise them that ask something about themselves, you know. then it takes half an hour or 1 hour when they tell the whole story. But I'm telling actually that part of my life which is more linked to the peacemaking. Here in the first slide you see a group of young people in a refugee camp in Darfur. I was working 2 years as a European Union Special Envoy in Sudan and Darfur, and after that advisor for United Nations for the Darfur security process. And these were the guys and people I usually met, people in Darfur, rebels, young, actually child soldiers, sometimes coming from the bushes and who wanted to end the war and find a solution for the peace, but it was very, very difficult. They were not only, by the way, male soldiers. This is a lady soldier in Darfur. Here she is giving military teaching to the kids and actually telling why you should get to the arms and resist the government and so on. So it was not a very peaceful message that this lady was giving to. And sometimes then with the rebel groups we went to the areas, the controlled areas, and tried to speak to them what could be done in this kind of military, in the middle of military conflict. And one of the most peaceful group actually always in these meetings were the ladies. These ladies came 2 days walking distance to meet and telling about their life and telling how they would like to live in peace in that area. And sometimes we met with the world leaders. This is Muammar Gaddafi in his tent sitting, and he was also having his own plans for the peace in Darfur. But unfortunately, Darfur and Sudan is one of those examples where peace has not been yet received. My other area where I worked was Somalia. Here I'm with a group of people who were involved in the hijacking of vessels. Somebody remembers that Somalia coastline was very, very dangerous, and it was very eye-opening when talking to the young kids who came around the car and seeing a white waste there and first think that, aha, that guy is worth of 1 million if we now kidnap him. But then when you ask these guys, 15, 16 years old, what is your dream job? And everybody say, we wanted to be pirates. And when you ask, why do you want to be pirates? They said, that's the best job available in this country. You know, if you are climbing as a first guy to the vessel, you get $100,000. If you are the second, you get $50,000. Even the third get the $25,000. They said this is the only working opportunity we have. And actually that led me to think what could be the different working options in places like Somalia for youth. Or meeting ladies groups in Somalia. Actually, this was a very interesting business ladies in Mogadishu in the middle of war. They said that they have invented a nice idea. They go to the roadblocks, and if they see a young kid with a Kalashnikov, they offer $200 for the gun. And then if the guy sells the gun, then they pay the schooling for the young kid. And then they say that we have invented in Mogadishu this disarmament. Have you ever been thinking how useful disarmament could be in the world? And I said, well, if you go to the UN headquarters, you hear only about the disarmament. But nobody knows that you are doing here the work with your own money and your own resources. And this actually leads me very much to think that we should really link our activities with the grassroots. And my third example comes from Latin America. These are people in the Helsinki Catholic Church. Now in May, the daughter of Berta Cáceres and some friends from Honduras who came telling about the killing of Berta Cáceres, a human rights and environmental activist, in March. And after that visit, I had the possibility to visit Honduras and visiting some of these Lenca Indian areas. These people in that remote village came that say to me that finally somebody came from Finland. You have been investing to renewable energy sources in Honduras without knowing that it's our land, it's our territory that you are doing all these projects. And of course, this was one of the eye-opening moments for me, that even our country, when we are doing the good things, like renewable energy sources, we are not actually dealing directly maybe with the people whose life these projects are so much influencing. And let this be my last slide. It's a young girl in this Lenka area, actually reminding very much of the very similar issues of the indigenous people rights that we have here in Finland with the Sami people and others, telling about the life in the village, telling about the culture, how actually when we are doing project with a country like Honduras, we are not looking exactly things on the village level. So these are some examples of my work. Thank you.
Thank you, Pekka. Next, can we get Sonia up here?
Thank you so much for having me here in this panel. I'm super excited that you have chosen youth, peace and security as your topic today, because it's increasingly important that us young people are involved in maintaining peace and solving conflicts and crises. I am the current UN Youth Delegate of Finland, which means that I have the huge responsibility and honor to represent all of us young Finns at the United Nations General Assembly. I will be going there in October, and I hope to take there with me the voice of young Finns. Before I go there, I do try my best to involve the voice of young Finns in UN affairs, in foreign affairs, and I do, for example, school visits, panels like this, and I'm active on social media, which is increasingly important these days. And I just try my best to ensure that young people are also included in the foreign affairs of Finland. Just last night, I actually returned from Eritrea, where I spent a week with young Finns from different youth organizations, trying to create dialogue with Eritreans. So forgive me if my thought is a little bit slow, hence I have my paper with me. But during that week, we met a lot of Eritreans. Maybe Mr. Haavisto can tell us more about Eritrea. He's done fantastic work there, and hopefully the country will slowly, a little bit open up, and we can create more cooperation activities there, which is here. We went to a education and training center in the middle of Eritrean desert, and it is kind of confusing to be here, having been there less than a week ago and now being here. But it also reminds me that us young people, no matter what the circumstances are, we're actually quite the same. These people weren't there actually as voluntarily there as you guys are here, but it gives me comfort that whilst we talked about their lives, we also talked about hair and boys, and they played spin the bottle, and that made me realize that all of us young people, we have lots in common, and that's something that we need to focus on, that there's more that we share than what's there that divides us. I don't have as much experience in conflict areas as of yet, but I want to tell you a bit about my path here. So each of you can think about what's your path to maintain peace and contribute towards peace. I started with a youth organization when I was 14. That group focused on children's rights. I was in my school's student council, I was in tutoring, I was in my local youth council, and that made me an active citizen that I am. And being a scout is also one way of being an active citizen. Then I went to, after high school I had a year off, and I went to England to study international relations. And from there I realized that my passion is actually in peace, in conflicts, diplomacy and democracy. And I went on to Ireland to study peace studies. And from there I came to Finland, and I was lucky employed by a member of the parliament. And now I try my best to slip youth, peace and security in some of his speeches whenever I can. And throughout my years in school, in university, I was active, and in that way I was contributing towards peace. I just wanted to point that out because it doesn't mean that you have to be in conflict zones to be able to contribute towards peace, but we can do that in Finland, where most of us haven't experienced conflict in our everyday lives. But peace is something that we need to nurture, and it's something that we need to maintain, and that needs active involvement of young people throughout the process. So that's a little bit about me. But I was also asked to say a couple of words about the Youth, Peace and Security resolution. We will talk more about it very shortly, so I'll keep it short here. Yes, what I want to congratulate you all Scouts for is that it indeed came from you guys. It came from the National Youth Council Alliance, it came from the UN Association of Finland, and the Guides and Scouts of Finland. Someone came up with the idea, took it to the next level, and now in December 2015, and it ended up in the top of the world to the UN Security Council. And that is fantastic that this initiative actually came from young people. It's a historic resolution that emphasizes the importance of young people in peace processes, solving conflict. It emphasizes participation, prevention, protection, and different partnerships. But what is most important about it is that it changes the narrative of youth from a negative one to a positive one. We're no longer a security threat, but we are part of the positive solution. And that's where we all come in, and we shall discuss about that a little bit further now.
Thank you. Raimundo.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And first, I want to congratulate Scouts of Finland for putting all this together and choosing the topic of youth, peace, and security, such an exciting topic in such a relevant time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how my experience in scouting has led me to the topic of youth, peace, and security. And I'm going to begin with this picture. That's a very scout picture. A part in Mexico, you know, everybody loves water, waterfalls, and different things. And my experience in scouting really was the trigger to getting involved in a more international perspective related to peace and security issues. It all started with a youth forum where I was previously very involved in Model United Nations and different activities. Then I participated in a youth forum in the, of the World Organization of the Scout Movement. And I had the opportunity to be a youth advisor to the World Scout Committee. And that experience really opened my perspective on how an organization such as the Scout Movement can really play an active role in international development, and how diverse our organization is, from how scouting also takes place, for example, in Africa or in Europe or in Asia or in Latin America, and be able to understand a little bit more the needs and the different activities that young scouts do to promote development in their own countries. For me, that was something extremely inspiring that led me as well to other opportunities, like being a youth delegate to the United Nations of Mexico, and also playing different roles during my youth activist part in different parts. And as well as being a volunteer in the Scout movement led me to represent the organization in international events, which eventually led me to work for UNICEF. I was, after the earthquake in Haiti in 2010, I suddenly received a call from UNICEF saying, hey, you know, we've seen that you organize a lot of youth forums and that you involve young people to have their voices heard and to have them participate in decision-making processes. And that's where I was called in after the earthquake to participate as part of the opening of a youth and adolescent development unit in Haiti after the earthquake. It was very important for the United Nations to make sure that the voices of adolescents and young people were included in the reconstruction plans of the country. how wonderful was that? It was an amazing experience to travel all around the country and being able to hear how young people saw themselves being part of the reconstruction, economic, political, social, and on different aspects of the reconstruction of their country. But suddenly, after several months, we also had an emergency. We had the cholera epidemic, and that cholera epidemic was really, well, drastic for the country. It imposed a lot of challenges. And again, guess which organization was in the forefront of the response for cholera? The Scouts of Haiti. Scouts of Haiti had a lot of initiative to go out in different communities to sensitize the population on things such as washing their hands, and also involving other youth organizations and mobilizing young people to be part of the response of an emergency and a crisis situation. And it is very important to reflect that a country has in the young people a lot of that asset. So I had the opportunity there to organize some youth forums. I'm going to switch back here. No, sorry. Well, then, after a while working for UNICEF, the situation in Mexico got really critical. Security situation got a lot of kidnappings, criminal organizations starting making shootings in the middle of the cities. And my family personally and my state and my city got very affected. So I decided it was time to leave UNICEF to go to Mexico and do a project in violence prevention. So what happened was that the US government and the Mexican government were inviting youth organizations to go and do projects, to implement projects and develop models of violence prevention for young people that were being recruited by criminal organizations and by local gangs. So Scouts of Mexico raised its hand and said, yes, we will launch a proposal. So we implemented a 3-year, $3 million project to develop a violence prevention model in the neighborhoods with the highest levels of crime and violence in Mexico. That project ended last year in October, and we can successfully say that more than 10,000 young people from the neighborhoods with the highest levels of crime and violence in the city of Tijuana were involved in scouting and were not recruited by criminal organizations. So many of them, as we just heard, when we asked them what their aspirations were and what they wanted to be when they grew up, they said they wanted to be gang leaders or they wanted to be hitmen from the criminal organizations because they got paid well, because they got respect from society, and because they could achieve a sense of family that the country and the community were not giving them. And that, precisely those types of young people that were being sought after by the criminal organizations were recruited by scouts, as well members from young gangs that got involved in different aspects. And we focused on strengthening 3 things, which were character, education, and citizenship, which is the most wonderful thing of the project was that we didn't do anything that we hadn't done before, which was implement the Scout program. The only difference was that we cared to go to them before they came to us. So it was a very proactive approach of taking scouting to the people that needed the most. So that's a little bit about my experience. I finished the project, and right now I'm a student back again in public administration, and very happy and very honored as well to be here with all the guests. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have Irini.
Moika, hello everyone. I'm Irini from Greece, and I'm really thankful for being here with you, sharing our experiences. So I will have a question, and then that you can raise your blue or your red. How many of you have you heard about refugee crisis and Greece? And all this together? Yeah, so, okay, you're familiar with the situation. So that all happened on July 2015, that in our islands there were not tourists anymore, not many of them. There were boats with people, thirsty, hungry, trying to find a way to survive. So these people were asking for water, for food, for sleeping bags. And until that time, I have never thought that our sleeping bag, a tool for sleeping in the camps, could be an essential tool for survival. So that was the image that you could already observe from the ports. That is the image that you can observe also now. I will have some photos here also. So for the first time, there were many non-governmental organizations that took action to release, make some solidarity actions that could be helpful for the refugees. And Guides and Scouts, from the very beginning, we were faithful in our values, and we started taking actions. We started delivering clothes, dry clothes, because all their clothes were wet. So we started delivering, tidy, cleaning up the clothes and giving to them. And of course, we have a great experience on entertaining children, educating children, and all that, and learn them how their potentials can be. So we started playing with their kids, and it was really, really interesting. My first time when I tried to interact with these children, that I haven't thought the parameters of the games. So touches between boys and girls may not be appropriate if you are in a different environment with children from different backgrounds and different cultures. So we tried to find games that would be appropriate for all of them. And as you can see in a picture that is full of boxes, this was all the help coming to the islands. This was all materials that were useful for the refugees, and we tried to collect them, separate them, delivering to them. And also the difference that we have with the other organizations is that we involved children on those actions. There were not only adults, scouts, leaders or guide leaders who were doing that. We enabled the children that we had to interact, to share the food, to talk with them, talk in a sign language, of course, because also the barrier of language can be really tricky sometimes. So we were collecting things again and making new friends. So I think that was it. And also, I would like to share with you something that a scout leader told me, that if you think you are too small to make a change, try sleeping in a room with a mosquito. So having that in mind, I thought how we can move forward onto that. So from now on, this situation, it's not temporary as it seems. So from now on, what we will do is, I will be a project manager of a program called Refugee Flows, Human Rights and Interculturalism that will be applied for the first time in the Greek schools. So we will teach the children who goes to the Greek school how to deal with the refugees. I mean, if you don't know why these people are here, if you don't know what is going on all around you, and you don't speak openly about these topics, and you think, oh no, they are too small, too young to talk about that, that is not the right path to go through this crisis situation. So we will implement this program. We have already the approval of the Ministry of Education in Greece and of the High Commissioner of the United Nations. So we try to, with our educational tools, I mean the educational tools of Scouts and Guides, we try to pass them the idea of the human rights so they can understand it and defend them in the future and promote them. Because we want active citizens for the future, and for that we should start from now. And also it's a question, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? So the solution is to act right now, to take the responsibility in our hands, because we have responsibilities and we have the power. We belong in a huge organization with such a good reputation and experience, so we can really be a part of a change, and each one of us separate can be an agent of change, and all together I really strongly believe that we could do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Mari.
Okay, thank you very much. It's so nice to be here, but I'm very nervous as well. And actually, I have to tell you something. I hate when I have to speak English. I really do. But I think that peace is enough big reason to me to speak English, or at least try it. So please try to understand me. If it's okay, I change a little bit those photos. Okay. As a scout, I had an amazing opportunity to start working as a volunteer last year in Turku. Me and my scout friends started to collect clothes and share some foods and everything, because there was so much refugees and asylum seekers in Turku then, and we have to do something. And right then, the Red Cross asked us to do something because they know that we can do something. Scouts really need to do something, and they can do something if they want. And then we go there. There was 2 buses. There was 100 people and maybe 3 or 4 scouts. And there we was. There was only us, and there was empty rooms and nothing else. And kids was crying, and adults was very, very, very tired. And then we take some clothes and we try to play with kids. And that night was amazing. There was so much love and there was so much care at the same time. I can't say how does it felt, but it was crazy and wonderful at the same time. There is some clothes. They were wet, and we tried to get something more because they were cold, and even in summer in Finland it's quite cold sometimes, as you feel now. We decide that we have to do something. It's not enough that we be there for them. We have to do something. And we decide that we go somewhere, we do something good together. Something that people see that those refugees are good people and they want to be part of our country and they want to do something. So we go to Turun Linna, Turku Castle, and put those leaves away from the Turku Castle. And after that, I had an amazing opportunity to start working as a district on the center of refugees or asylum seekers. And there is so many wonderful people in my center. They want to do something. They want to change the world. They want peace. It's so wonderful that they really want to do something for peace in this world. They don't just be there and wait someone to do something for them. They want to do everything for us, for them, for everyone. This picture is after the Baghdad, after those bombs in Iraq, in Baghdad. Our people go out and they put very many candles out and they just be there. They stand by themselves. And they was crying. They really cry, but they didn't cry because Iraq. They didn't cry because themselves. They cry because of world. And I think that there is quite much we have to think very much peace, and we have to do something. We can't wait anymore. And I think that Finnish Scout really need to do something right now, and we can do it. We really can. Thank you.
Thank you. So, pretty impressive speakers we have here, am I right? Okay, so let's start. What does the resolution mean to you personally, if anything? And can you give an example, what does it mean to your country or community? Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, thank you. The resolution of peace, youth, peace and security, it's very relevant. It means for me that it is recognizing the important role of young people in the peace building process, in the construction of peace and all the elements that go together on building not only peace, momentarily peace, but a sustainable peace. And some of the components that catch more my attention have been, first, that it recognizes that young people are between 18 and 29 years of age. Before that, just to put into context, other UN documents have referenced young people between 15 and 24 years of age. And sometimes it overlapped with the Convention of the Rights of the Child, and some of the programs that were aimed towards adolescents didn't really reach the other age group between 18 and 29 years old. Now, another point that is very important that catch my attention of the resolution is that it is divided into participation, prevention, protection, partnerships, and different sections of the document that make it very easy for youth organizations and for youth themselves to understand how they can play a role as well in the peace-building process. So many people, when they listen to these words, they might think of maybe a forum that a young person participated with in Scouts, for example. Or they might think of Skills for Life. Or they might think as well of partnering with an organization they know about. And then they can begin thinking on how can they use that experience they got in their organizations or in their own life to participate in these peace and security initiatives, especially to as well have an impact in other young people that are victims, in this case, of forced migration that can be in different circumstances, whether it is by war, by economic situations, or by many other situations that force people to migrate from one place to another. So it's definitely a groundbreaking moment. I heard some applauses here of the people that have seen that this is the result of years and years of advocacy effort where Scouting has been involved in different periods of time and other organizations as well. And there was a whole advocacy group that was promoted by young leaders that really wanted the Security Council, because this is a resolution that comes from the Security Council, to push on the agenda the role of young people in the whole process and help international organizations. Thank you.
So, Pekka, you have a long career in politics. What do you think about this resolution?
First, I think that if Elisabeth Rehn could have been here today, she would have mentioned that there is also another important resolution for Finland, and of course it's the role of women and girls during the conflicts, UN 1325, and since the UN resolutions go in number, you can notice that hundreds of resolutions have passed between these two resolutions. But 1325, of course, has been this kind of flagship for Finland. We have been always taking the role of the women and girls in the middle of the conflict, and not only as people to be protected during the conflict, but an active people in solution of the conflict. And now I think the same dynamics comes with the UN 2250. And always when I'm saying in the foreign ministry that, by the way, we have this new UN 2250, how are you going here in Finland to implement it? How are you going to involve the youth and the youth organizations to do something for the Finnish foreign policy so that the youth could be active part of it? I can see, there's no answer because nobody has been thinking of this yet. And now the role of the Scouts and others is to propose issues. Let's do it in this way. Let us take part in the Finnish delegation here and there, and let us be active in New York, in the UN, and so on. And I think this is very much up to the Scouts to propose. The negative thing, of course, if you think the overall youth peace and security, negative part of the background is that radicalization in the world is very much also the problem of the youth. We have actually refugees, second and third generation refugees here in Europe, like we saw in Paris and Brussels attacks, who have been part of these radical, very nasty events, violent events. And again, that's a big challenge. How do we address the radicalization? And when people are asking, where is the mosque or where is the church that is praying for radicalization, we don't need any more mosques or churches because we have internet. The radicalization is there and people learn these crazy ideas from the internet, and actually that's something that we also have to pay attention to, how to fight the radicalization in different forms.
So there was a challenge for Scouts. What does Mari say? Do we take it?
We have to take it, and absolutely we have to do something for that the youth have, how can I say, they need hope, they need peace, they need something that they trust for. And I think that Scouts can give it to them. Youth need something where they can be good at and something to go and something to try. And this is our stuff, this is our thing, absolutely.
Sonia, you know something about how to implement the resolution actually. Maybe some tips for the Scouts, or do you have any ideas that you would like to actually start to implement by yourself as a project manager?
We actually are or have already started to work to bring the resolution 2250 to Finland. We're creating now a network. It's in the early days, but we're creating a network which is initiated by young people and led by young people, which we hold extremely important. That it's not the officers at the foreign minister who do it, but it's actually from ourselves. I see this as a potential for the Finnish foreign minister to take as a new flagship, because even though there are problems, Finland is actually pretty good at listening to the voice of young people. The local youth councils are in the law. Every municipality in Finland has to have a local youth council. That is also going into the law on regions that we're going to have next year. Every region has to listen to young people in one way. So we have already great examples of how we're doing things in Finland. So why not take it to the next level? Why not brag about it in the United Nations or elsewhere that we are already doing this? So I see this as something fairly easy that we could do if there's enough will to do it. And where does will come from for the foreign minister, for example? We have to put a little bit of pressure on them, and that can come from us young people. And there are already Scouts involved in creating the 2250 network, and I hope to see Scouts equally active in the future work that we're going to do with it.
Irini, how did the Scouts of Greece welcome this resolution?
It has already started being part of our lives to take the opportunity that the resolution gives us. So we are already active, Scouts and Guides. We are already active also when the economic crisis started in Greece. We started taking part. We started not only proposing things, but actively being involved to that. And so now with the refugees, it's always the Scouts and Guides are in the front line, and that they lead for the other non-governmental organizations the situation on how do you do that. We have the tools, so that's essential, and we move forward.
Okay. Why do we need this kind of resolution? For example, in Finland, we are a developed country. We have a stable-ish situation, political-wise. What do we need this resolution for here?
To me, it makes all the sense in the world. The amount of young people that there is now in the world is the largest that we've ever seen in the history. There's, I think there's 3.5 billion of us, and it just makes all the sense of the world to include young people in peace, in combating radicalization or xenophobia, because I don't know any company that would voluntarily waste 50% of their potential, and we can't afford to do that either as a world.
Sounds reasonable. Why? So you are saying that it's important to acknowledge youth in these issues because it's 50% of the population. How should we actually get them involved? Is it during Scouts or other volunteer work or any other matters that we can actually involve young people like this audience here? Any ideas?
Maybe one of those topics when people think about peace and security is that peace and security is somewhere far away, you know, somewhere in the corridors of UN headquarters or somewhere there. But of course, peace starts at home in many, many ways. And when people ask that what is the right target and where can I do something, it's about against the hate speech, it's about against xenophobia, it's against this kind of populistic, nationalistic tendencies that we have now in many, many countries, which are actually threatening also the peace. And I think here in Finland we can do so many things. When in the newspaper there was a story about the Somalis in Lieksa, and you know that the Somali taxi driver was beaten there in Lieksa, and there was a disturbance between the local population and between the Somalis. And I visited the Lieksa Somalis, and it was an amazing place because 10,000 people living in Lieksa, and then just from the sky 300 Somalis have moved to those empty houses that they have in Lieksa. And there was absolutely no communication between the migrants and the citizens of Lieksa until some local people took the initiative and decided to bring the bridge and build the bridge and make the links and so on. And that is needed. Whenever you see that kind of problem that you can influence, you can do, it's very much on the small scale and not only on the corridors of the UN or big peace tables and negotiation tables. And I think that kind of citizen awareness is needed, and that's of course something that the youth particularly can do and can have their eyes open and react more rapidly than others.
Do you think that we need also the same program they have in Greece, that an educational program in elementary school that we teach kids how to deal with refugees and asylum seekers, and to like build bridges between cultures?
No, then I promised to keep silent for a while, but I tell you a nice story. I was in Helsinki school who were very concerned youth about the refugees in Darfur. And they have been keeping a cafeteria in the school and collecting 1,000 euro for the kids in Darfur with this cafeteria and baking and so on. And then they invited me to tell something about the Darfur and Sudan. And then they asked that, what is the best way to send this 1,000 euro to Darfur? And I said, well, I'm going there next week, so give it to me. And of course the kids were, well, we are not going to give 1,000 euro to a politician, you know, it's extremely suspicious. But then, you know, we negotiated and I finally got the 1,000 euro. But with the very, of course, with the receipt and a very, this kind of letter, which was, where was the intention of the money, it should help the girls in the Darfur refugee camp and, you know, with the books and with their toilet conditions and others. Then I went to Darfur. I asked a local organization, SUDO, where is this kind of refugee camp where there are girls in need of help? And then they said, from 2 hours drive, we can go there. And the girls already waited. They were sitting in the sand, 200 girls, and their teachers. And I was bringing the letter and the 1,000 euro. And first reaction from the first row was that when I was reading the names of the Finnish school kids, the girls asked, can you read the names again? And then they tried to write down the Finnish names, who has been giving this money to them and collecting. And then the girls asked, how do these school kids in Finland know that we exist? And then I said, well, in our newspapers there's even more information than in your local newspapers in this conflict and so on. And then they asked, where is Finland? And I draw a map in the sand and, you know, north up. And they say, oh, you have ice bears in the streets and so on, all these typical issues. And then they started to write a letter back to the Finnish school kids. And when I came back to Helsinki, I was bringing the letter and the photos and things like that. And the same silence there in Helsinki when people listen to the story. And this happened only with 1,000 euro. You don't need to have so much. And I'm sure that these kids in Darfur remember all their lives that somebody somewhere there in the north is thinking about us. And with this feeling, you can live much more longer, believe me.
And actually, I was thinking that you don't need the problem to arrive in front of your door to deal with it. I mean, we are already late in Greece that we implement this educational program, because already we have voices accusing the refugees that they are coming. And they are telling that, oh, we don't want them here, we want them to go back and fight for their countries. But if we have already predicted, I mean, it's impossible to predict some situations, but if we have already thought about having an education on human rights, like a strongly believing in that, maybe we could have changed some beliefs like that. So it's like already late. We need to do something now.
Yes, and building a lot on that, I think it is not necessary to wait for a catastrophic situation to happen nearby. In the case, again, going back to the case of Mexico, Scouts of Mexico proposed a project after family members of a lot of scouts had been kidnapped or had been in the middle of conflict situations or had been really affected by insecurity and different types of situations. And that was what triggered a response. But why wait until that moment? Why wait until there is an event in our country or in our neighborhood or that affects our family to really stand up and say, hey, you know, I need to do something about it? And I think Scouts have always been forward-looking. Before it was perhaps on the environment or on different issues. And right now there's big challenges that are coming to our world and to humanity and to young people like us that also wear a scarf, that are in different countries, that are struggling, and that need for other Scouts as well and other young people to stand up and do something to as well lend a hand and help them as well be able to sustain on their own selves. So I think that's why it's super important for Scouts to see that they are capable with the skills, with the experience they have to do something before the crisis emerges. There's nothing better than prevention. And I think building peace, as we have heard, it's built of our core business. What is the core business of Scouts? Our core business is trust. And humanity is many times losing trust on each other. It's losing trust from people that practice a different religion that we practice. Losing trust from people that come from another country than ours. Losing trust from people that have other social situations or economic situations that we have. In Mexico, we lost trust of a part of our population that trust was given by criminal organizations, and they were radicalized, and they were given weapons, and they were given money, and they were given power. And that's where the instability started. But why lose that trust? Why not build bridges and build communication and build dialogue, which is what we're used to do. We do dialogue around the campfire. We do dialogue in camps like this one. We invite people from other countries. There are over 3,000 international visitors in Roihu, which is a great accomplishment. That dialogue is there. But how many of us, for example, in the camp have approached someone from a country that it's not ours to learn more about where they come from, or if they practice the same religion as we do, or what are the challenges that those young people are facing? We have that opportunity here, for example, in Roihu, but we also have it in our neighborhoods. And that's where I think that the programs such as these, where we use education as a tool to build dialogue and peace, which is also an element that is described in the Youth, Peace and Security Resolution, is talking to us, is inviting us. But it is up to us to take the challenge and to make it ours and to do something in our communities. Thank you.
Okay, there was a question for the audience. How many of you have approached someone from a different country during Roihu? Have you done it or have you not? I'm pleased to what I see. Plenty of blue, which means yes, you have approached. Well, another question right away. Have you ever done volunteer work in crisis situation? some of you have, most of you haven't. It's an interesting point of view here in Finland, because maybe we don't have, or it's harder to think of any crisis that we could volunteer here in Finland. Do you have any examples where Scouts have taken part in a volunteer work, working in crises in your countries?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of examples. In Mexico is a country that is very prone to natural disasters, where there is hurricanes, floodings, earthquakes, and different types of disasters that can happen every year in the country. So Scouts normally cooperate with local authorities to help, for example, the Mexican Red Cross, to help the different institutions as well to respond to the population. But again, as we have been sharing throughout the panel, the prevention is a key aspect, which is how can we manage to get all the people in a community, get all their assets, whether that is, for example, perhaps their cars or perhaps clothing or different aspects that they could help with, whether it's food to give to the most needed population, and also enable the population that many times has to be evacuated from danger zones, trust the local police or the local authorities that they will take care of their homes and of the things that they have in the meantime that a natural disaster is happening. So that's an action that happens in Mexico. And the second example I want to put is in Haiti. In my experience with the United Nations, in UNICEF, working in different types of response, one post-crisis, which was after the earthquake, and another one during the cholera epidemic, it was really amazing and inspiring to see how young people from the Scouts of Haiti coordinated with other youth organizations, mobilized youth from their communities, and how all the communities respected the young people because they saw they had their uniform, they had a scarf, and they trusted them. It was very interesting to see how the community can achieve great things, especially on prevention and crisis response, when they have someone they can trust. And they trusted the Scouts there. They trusted the Scouts, for example, to tell them that it was not the voodoos that were putting something in the water to have the population get sick, but it was actually a bacteria that was out there in the atmosphere. But they trusted the Scouts to tell them that they had to wash their hands and that they had to do some actions as well to save their lives. So it's very interesting how in many parts of the world Scouts are trusted to deliver those key messages, which is something that a politician might do in the United Nations General Assembly or in TV, but many times the people who need it the most are not aware of those dynamics. And it takes one person to tell to another person, and many times those are Scouts. So that was my experience on that. Thank you.
Irini, you have a very recent experience on this one, but do you remember anything else from Greece? Any other crisis situation where the Scouts have been active?
I think last year, well, actually every year we have big fires in many places in Greece. So it was last year or two years ago that we went and we built tents. We again cooking and distributing food, and people lost their homes. So we were responsible of building the tents, of being actively involved again to that. And also we had a great partnership with grandmothers, and we were cooking together when the economic crisis started. So people lost their jobs and hope maybe. So it was a kind of event that we were cooking together with grandmothers, and people came to us, we cheered them up. Even the simple things can be something.
Actually, this is the moment when I realize how much more Finnish Scouts should do. And actually, maybe it's because we don't have those crises so near us. And this is exactly what everyone is saying, that we should do something before the crisis is so near. But I think we have start to do something, and that's much more better than do nothing. And of course we have done very much together with Red Cross, and it's very important, and because Red Cross knows what we should do, what we can do to help them, and of course we have now asylum seekers and very much and refugees, and we have helped Red Cross and collect many clothes and toys and everything. And we have many much plans what we should do, and there is very much we should teach from them, and I think that this is an opportunity for us. It really is. And when I work with people who lives in crisis, they are safe now, but actually they have very much cries because they don't know where their families are. They don't know how what is their future, and it's awful. And I think that Scouts should help them. We should give something to do and be part of the country and be part of all of us.
Sonia, you mentioned that you are building a network for the implementation of the resolution. What part Scouts could have in that?
I think the network is bringing different youth organizations together so that there's a bigger force behind the resolution and implementing that. But I actually think that Scouts and other youth organizations are already doing youth peace and security activities a lot. You don't have to make a separate activity out of YPS, but it's already there, and it's just a question of sort of branding what youth peace and security is and what Scouts are already doing. The key is that peace, contributing towards peace is not a separate activity. It's something that we need to do constantly, and what we are doing constantly.
I bet there are many persons in this audience who would like to have more active role in these issues. How would you advise them how to go forward?
I have a question that I like to ask my audience, young audiences. How many of you have heard the phrase that the young people are the future, or the youth are the future leaders of tomorrow? Pretty much all of us, right? From now on, I want you to tell them that they're wrong. They're completely wrong. In Finland, for example, the youngest MP which was elected last year was 24. And youngest ever to receive the Nobel Peace Prize was 17. And unfortunately, the attackers of Paris or Boston or London, they were under the age of 30, most of them. And all of these are good examples that us young people, we're already making a difference. And we are not just the tomorrow, we are the present. And that's really, really important to remember that is the state of mind you need to have. And you don't have to wait for tomorrow to make an impact in the world.
So when you find out something that you would like to do and you recognize the issue, what's the next step? What should you do? What is the process of actually implementing the idea into action?
Well, I think Scouting offers a very solid framework to put into practice projects, especially when you are an adventure scout or a rover scout. There's initiatives such as Scouts of the World. There's initiatives as well that might go global or that might go national. But my invitation is to look for those initiatives, to have an idea, but share that idea. There's nothing worse than just keeping an idea to oneself, because then that idea will only stay there and will not have an impact. And many times the idea is born because someone is aware of something that needs to be taken care of, or that they realize that they themselves can do a difference in a certain topic. So there are a lot of tools out there. There might be from your local government or your national government or your organization like the Scouts or another organization. But the point here is to, once you have that idea built up and that you've gathered the initiative to really play a proactive role or are willing to spend and invest time on that project, look for help, because you're not going to be alone. That's one of the biggest things that one needs to understand, that remember that the only thing needed for like the evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. And when good people get together and they talk to each other, good things happen. Resources are out there, whether they're financial, human, infrastructural. There's always someone willing to do a good thing. And I think as scouts as well, we have the privilege to be trusted as well. As I can't emphasize enough the role of trust in all this peace and security. And also another point that I want to make is the peace and security, youth peace and security resolution all makes emphasis as well the role of young people as role models for other young people that might see in someone else that is doing a negative thing as a role model. So many times it only takes for us to believe in oneself that we are also role models for other young people. And how can we close that gap and go together with the people that are looking for someone that inspires them, that believes in them, and that can share with them some skills and some vision. So that would be really the challenge. After you have really felt that call within yourself, just make sure to get with the people that are also in the same frequency and in the same, sharing the same ideas as you. And surely something very good is gonna come out of it. And don't get disappointed if you knock on a couple of doors and you get a couple of no's. Because if there's something that this movement teaches us, is that we should not give up, and that we know that even if it rains, the camp is still going to continue. Well, even if we get a no in an initiative or in a project idea that we have, that doesn't mean that it's going to stop there. So it many times takes 2 or 3 doors to be knocked, but I'm sure you're going to get a response. And the world needs it now more than ever.
Irini, what kind of obstacles you had to overcome during your project?
During the project, well, I would like first to emphasize on what Raimundo said. Like 9 years ago, I was with some friends of mine. I mean, I'm telling that because it's not only important to act as a scout. We should act also as individuals. So 9 years ago, I was with my friends, and we were talking about the people who were coming to our country, immigrants, and they couldn't speak Greek, and they couldn't find a job. So we created kind of a school for learning them Greek. That was a crazy idea in the beginning, but now this is a Sunday school, and it's going on. And people coming here, I was 18 years old, and I was teaching a family from Pakistan how to speak Greek, and I felt alive that moment. So that's our role in the society. Even if you are 15, even if you are 12 or 27 or 54. So about the obstacles actually are the people that you have around you. You have to just make a good plan to move forward, and then to find the right people to spread the idea and share the idea with you. Of course, there are bureaucratic things that need to be done for something that important that has to do with the state. But a part of that, it's the people and your own feelings about a project. If you feel strong about that, and if you find the right team to do that, everything can move forward, I think.
Any other ideas?
Excellent examples, and congratulations for your experiences in Greece and in Mexico. But maybe two points. One is, and I'm not happy to learn, but I can recognize that the same attitudes are among the maybe young people and population in Greece than sometimes in Finland. People are suspicious when foreigners are coming, why they are coming to our country, what are they doing here, why don't they stay at home, and so on. I remember it was already some years ago in Iisalmi when there was a discussion that should Iisalmi take these quota refugees, and of course it was a big hall full of people and almost everyone against the refugees coming to Iisalmi, and then there was a voting and clear majority voted against. And then there was a Red Cross person who asked that, How many of you would like to be a resource person or supportive person for these refugees if they now anyhow come to Iisalmi? Then those people at the first row who has been most eagerly arguing against refugees say, well, if they now appear to Iisalmi, we can be supportive persons. And I think this is very much something in us, you know. We are suspicious, we wouldn't like our life to be disturbed, but let's do it. If they come here, let's do it, let's help. And I think this kind of realistic attitude is very important. And my other comment is about acting and talking. Very often people think that it's only talking, you know, let's go to action, it's only talking. But talk is an act. And particularly nowadays when people have so much hate speech and this kind of negative talking, how you speak about the things, how you express yourself about the other people and so on, that's already an act. And it's very, very important. And you spread a good model as here referred to. When you know, little bit calm down your own speaking about the refugees and others. And I loved an example. I was in a school and you always see the last row guys who are sitting like this and when you speak about the refugees. And then suddenly one of these guys were asking me, could you give me advice how to be a little bit less racist than my friends? And it was an excellent question, you know, because it showed what was the general attitude, but he wanted to do something. I think these kind of examples we need.
Great. What kind of role do you think that actual scout troops should have in these issues? Is it just individuals with great ideas trying to gather more people around them, or should actual scout troops that are so many in Finland do together something?
Maybe both, I think. I think the best we can do is be a friend. Ask someone to be part of us and ask him or to come with us on camp or ask if you want to come our scout group or that kind of thing. But I think we need also those big camps or big parties or somewhere where we can ask refugees or asylum seekers with us.
The thing is that scout troopers have overcome years of effort of communication. So we already have common values and a solid common space to communicate. So it's already like you overcome lots of obstacles in this way. So it's easier to act as a scout trooper.
Thank you. We are coming towards the ending of our panel discussion. The last question I want to ask every one of you is that what is the best way for youth to influence security and crisis issues? Give us some tips.
I'll give you one example because I'm sure there's plenty. So I am the UN Youth Delegate of Finland, and I keep this youth, peace and security topic up as much as I can. But we need to demand more of those opportunities and take them on high levels that where big decisions are made. They're not going to be just given to us, but we need to demand it and make sure that our voices are heard. I have a colleague, the climate delegate of Finland, and I actually want to tell a little story about her experience last year at the Paris negotiations. The Paris Agreement is the first agreement in the world, international agreement in the world that mentions intergenerational equity, so the equality between generations, which is hugely important in climate talks. So that intergenerational equity was going into the draft process, and the youth delegates were obviously really, really happy about it. The negotiations were tough, as you may have read on the news, and the schedule was tight, but it was there, and it was really from the youth delegates. But suddenly, towards the end of the negotiations, it just suddenly disappeared from the draft. It's a massive thing to leave out, and the youth delegates from different countries raised their voices and said, hey, where did this go? And they started contacting their own delegations from their own countries and demanding it to be back. And then they got it back. But someone explained that, whoops, it was a copy-paste error that was left out. And the story doesn't tell if it was because of the young delegates that it was put back on the final agreement, but if it wasn't for the young people, it might have been left out, and a whoops wouldn't have been sufficient when it's a big issue like that. So when you're given those opportunities, don't take them for granted and keep your make a noise. But those opportunities are currently rare, and we need to demand more of those.
Well, you are already doing something because you are participating here and talking to each other about these topics and so on. Good action needs motivation and knowledge. And motivation, I'm sure all you have. Now knowledge is something that you can all the time increase. And wherever you work, in your school, in your village, wherever, organize something on this topic. Invite a good speaker, invite somebody interesting person, invite a refugee to tell about his life, whatever, you know, to get first of all the first-hand knowledge about the issue that you are interested about, and then maybe create some action based on that knowledge and your motivation.
I think that we should tell and think and talk and listen more. We should listen, especially those who think very different than us, very different than much every one of us. Those who are racist, those who are very critical, and we should tell why we think different, but we should understand different way of thinking, and I think this is the only way for peace.
So I think being informed, know what is going on around us, getting to know more of what is going on, and getting deeper on the information, and also to be involved in things that matters to you personally or to the society in general. And I think another thing is asking yourself, is that all? Is that all that I can offer? Can I do more? Is that all? And again, and do what is in your limits and put the limits up. The limit is the sky and so on, you know.
Thank you. So building upon what has been said, definitely knowledge, it's get informed, and I would specifically recommend, for example, to learn more about the subject, the World Youth Report, which is a document that is published every several years on a specific topic. The one of 2013 is focused on youth and migration. And the one of 2016 that was just launched a couple of weeks ago is, the topic is youth and civic engagement, which is also very related with what you are used to doing within Scouting or in your communities. So those are two very interesting tools that you can use to learn and get awareness on the topic and get informed. Also, once you have the knowledge, then the challenge becomes, what are my attitudes? So reflect on the attitudes that you have in your community with the people in your same scout group, and as well from different parts that might be interacting with you. So making an assessment of your attitudes normally leads to the third part, which is the practices or the behaviors. You may have the knowledge, you may have a good attitude, but then it becomes, how are your practices being congruent and coherent with those attitudes and with that knowledge? And once you have those three things, knowledge, attitudes, and practices, then you will be able to lead with the most powerful tool that every leader has. And I'm sure all you guys know which is the most powerful tool that every leader has, and that is example. In Scouts, we lead by example. We have the patrol leader, we have the role models, we encourage young people to be the role models and to lead by example in their homes, in their schools, in their communities, and according to their own possibilities. It is not the same thing of a brownie or of a Cub Scout than of a Rover Scout or an adult leader. So everyone knows the type of role and example that they can have an impact on. So don't limit yourselves. Always reflect on the type of example you're being for the fellow people. And many times, without even noticing, you're already making a difference. If one scout decides to make a project, maybe the scout in another group would say, hey, you know, we also want to do project as well, without inviting that person. But it is example, the most powerful of the tools that you can use to promote peace in whatever context you want to have an impact on. Thank you.
Thank you for the encouraging words. Okay. Now getting back to the audience. Again, blue is yes and red is no. Do you now feel that as a young person you can impact issues on security and crisis? That's what I thought. At least I feel a lot more empowered right now than I did an hour ago. So this has been an amazing hour and a half. Thank you for the panelists, and thank you all for your contribution to peace, security, and this seminar. This wouldn't have been happening without you. I would also like to inform you about a friendship banner here in Roihu. The Traveling Friendship Banner is a project where everyone can take part and paint greetings of friendship and peace on a wall at the radio station, which can be found on Leirisuora. Please do it tonight, because tomorrow the banner is gonna take off to Germany, and from there it's gonna go to a Russian scout camp, and it's gonna come back to Roihu to the closing ceremony, and hopefully by that time it will have over 10,000 greetings on it. This is a project of an individual scout, German scout, and it's a way of working for peace. Please go to the radio station to sign it, and hopefully you will do something else for peace also. Thank you.
Sonia, congratulations.